Okay, and we're back, and I have refilled my water, and I have refilled my wine, and I've refilled my mixed drink, and I hear ice clinking. I assume Karch has refilled his iced coffee.
Yep.
So, let's get cozy, and let's dive into this. Let's dive into it. And I don't know if we'll end up breaking this out for the podcast or not, but we'll talk about it afterwards. We'll probably break it up for the videos. And I'll probably just do like an episode 16, part 1, part 2 sort of thing. So, how we're going to do this, I've listened to a lot of spoiler casts, and they are all structured differently. But what I think Karch and I felt like worked the best is to kind of like overview each chapter and talk about the story beats, and then within that talk about that particular part of the game and break it down from a gameplay perspective and like a player perspective, and kind of work our way through the whole story like that. So hopefully that works for everybody. And this is your one and only warning that this is a The Last of Us spoiler cast. We have no access to The Last of Us Part 2, so don't worry about that. It's not going to be anything from The Last of Us Part 2. I haven't even watched the state of play on that. But in terms of The Last of Us Part 1, you're about to get every single story beat, every single Easter egg, everything is about to be talked about. So if you don't want to hear it, if you ever plan on playing it, and you care about that sort of thing, probably turn it off right now, or don't even watch this video. Okay, with that said, Karch, are you ready to dive in?
So ready.
This is something I've been really excited about, and I think this is going to be a little unique in that I did not play this on the PS3, but I played the remastered version on the PS4 at launch, and I haven't played it since. So I think we're talking like 2014 is when this came out on the PlayStation 4 remastered, and I haven't touched it since then. But I have very fond memories of it, and, you know, I really, really enjoy this game. And you, on the other hand, played it in 2020. So you, or maybe even a little bit like saddling 2019 and 2020. When did you start this?
I'd have to go look at like the trophies, but I want to say it was early this year I started
Okay.
it.
Well, either way, you're playing it from a totally different perspective than me, because I'm playing it when it was in the zeitgeist and when this was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then you're playing it having already played all these other games that were inspired by it. So hopefully that offers a little bit of interesting perspective for anybody listening to this who's already listened to other spoiler casts on this game. So let's begin. I'm going to be talking story beats. Karch is going to be kind of more focused on the minutia because he's played it more recently than me. And then I will tell you what my memories of these sections were.
Cool.
And feel free, Karch, at any time to jump in and clarify story beats or add some extra whatever, detail. Do whatever you feel is best and right. And because I kind of try to keep this pretty high level for each chapter summary.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give people enough detail to know what's going on. But if you think there's something that is kind of crucial to the conversation that I'm skipping over, please interject.
Will do. Always do.
So, yeah, you do. Okay, so the year is 2013 in the game. We are in Austin, Texas, and we open on a kind of normal house. You have the father, Joel, and a daughter, Sarah, who are winding down for the night. And I think it's Joel's birthday, and there's a little scene where, like, Sarah gives him a watch, and because his old watch was broken, and they joke that the new watch is broken, but it's really not. And then Sarah kind of dozes off on the couch. I think she, at some point, either her dad carries her to bed, or she goes to bed, or whatever, but at any rate, she's awoken by a phone call, because in 2013 everybody had a landline right next to their bed. So she's awoken by a phone call. It's a frantic call from her uncle Tommy. He wants to speak with her dad. He seems pretty panicked. Sarah is walking through the house and she's looking for her dad, and she finds him downstairs, and he comes in through a sliding glass door. He's telling her to stay back. She doesn't know what's going on. He's freaking out. It's dark. He's saying there's something wrong with the neighbors. He's looking for his gun in a drawer. He pulls it out, and as he's pulling it out, the neighbor kind of bursts in looking very zombie-like. Joel shoots the neighbor. Sarah panics. She's freaking out. She has no idea what's going on. They run outside and hop in a car with Uncle Tommy, and they start to make their way out of the city. Their car, at some point driving, a lot of people are panicking. Everybody's trying to get out of the city. Their car gets blocked, and they have to continue on foot. It's very chaotic. There are people running everywhere. Everything's on fire. We run through this little kind of corridor that's empty. Eventually, kind of these like hypnotized zombie-looking people are trying to chase us. So obviously, we know right off the bat that's not good. That's bad. We run through a building. Tommy is holding the door shut. He tells us to go on. He'll catch up with us. He's giving us time to kind of get some headway and get ahead, and he's going to catch up. So we kind of get separated from him. We're running. We run out of the building. We run into this military guy who seems to be guarding sort of a quarantine zone. He tells us to stay right where we are. He's very like militant, very like, I'm pointing my gun at you, like you do what I tell you to do. He gets on like a walkie-talkie call with his boss. We can't hear what the boss is saying. He's like, the military guy says, "Really? Okay, sir." And he points the gun at us. We're freaking out. We're trying to de-escalate the situation. It doesn't work. The military guy fires a bullet at us. We kind of dodge out of the way. Just as that happens, Tommy shows up, shoots that military guy in the head. He falls dead. We're fine. We don't know where Sarah is. We dropped her as we were kind of dodging out of the way. The bullet missed us, but we find that it hit Sarah in the stomach. We try to stop the bleeding. We do CPR. We do everything we can, but
come on, baby girl.
Our daughter Sarah passes, and the screen goes black. Then it's The Last of Us.
It's a tone setter.
Oh my gosh, it's so a tone setter. Like,
it's my favorite part of the game.
It's amazing, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, you're gonna, I don't know, like Matt tried to play this game because it was bundled with a PS4 that he bought, and he played the intro, and he's like, too depressing, and he's just stopped playing it.
I mean, that's fair, because it is.
I mean, and this is a very cinematic opening sequence. You do at points in the intro here, you do take control of the character of Joel.
And Sarah.
But it's very cinematic. It's very linear. It's very like, this is the experience we want you to have. That you're playing a movie at this point in the game.
And, to a small degree, that never really changes.
That is correct, yeah. Do you have anything else to say about this part of the game? I mean, what were your thoughts and feelings playing it?
Feelings is, it's so. I bought this game and I was like, okay, I'm going to finally do this thing. I'm going to finally play it. I will say before I get started, is I did know the ending to this game before I played it. It was spoiled for me. I think I read the Wikipedia article like 5 years after it came out, thinking I was never going to play it.
Sure.
But I ended up doing it, and so like. And I also I think I unfortunately spoiled the two best parts, the ending and the beginning. I knew that she died. But it was still really moving. Like I said, it's probably my favorite part of the game, even as like uninteractive as it is. Because immediately you see everything this game kind of has to offer. Even though you only see like
true. You don't know everything the game has to offer.
I mean, that's not what I'm saying. That sounds cynical. What I mean to say, like, it's not a tone thing, but like the game shows you what it's capable of right at the get-go.
Yeah,
and so
it's very strong storytelling. And it does a lot of environmental storytelling too, as you are in that opening sequence. And I think you control Sarah at points, and you're kind of walking through, and there's like a news story on the TV that you can kind of stop and watch for a few seconds, and just like little things like that where you get these clues as to what's going on, but you don't really know what's going on.
And that's a theme through the rest of the game. A lot of environmental storytelling, or at the very least, you pick up a note that kind of ties into the environment. Like, okay, I'm in this person's room, and now I really understand what I'm looking at after I read this note.
And the other thing that I want to say about this section is that I remember playing it in 2014, and it was like, we lived in Canada, my wife and I, we had like we were expats, my company was paying for my lodging, like we had her brother up, and we were just like carefree, whatever, and I played it, I was like, oh man, that's sad, whatever, yeah, that sucks, his daughter died. And then you flash forward, I rewatched this section as a 31-year-old with a son, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was so intense, and I'm like depressed. I'm sad. Like, I didn't like tear up, but I got pretty close. So I was like, in the gut, man.
I have a daughter, and if somebody shot her, I would be very sad.
That's probably the appropriate reaction. So.
No, like I do like, and you won't know this till you play later, but there's a nice juxtaposition between Sarah and Ellie in two different worlds, especially when Ellie makes comments about girls from before the disaster, and the way that she kind of just mocks them. Like, but like Joel had one of those. He had a teenage girl for a daughter. And so to have her say these things, and he never reacts to it in any kind of like negative way, but like, just like, what are you thinking? What do you think of Joel when she says stuff like that? Like, cause it does seem silly in this particular environment, or even in today's environment, when you really think about it, girls and boys and look at magazines and what they worry about. But I don't know. It's like that was who she was as a person. It's who they were as people. But anyway, that's all I had to say on that.
Okay, so we'll move on. So that title screen goes black, and then it opens back up, and then we have flash forward 20 years. So the year is 2033, and we are in Boston, Massachusetts. And you're still kind of, this is very cinematic, but you assume you're still Joel. Burt break. So you assume you're still Joel, and you're awoken by your partner in crime, Tess. You kind of find out you're a smuggler, and she is telling you that she was attacked by a weapons dealer who they're in debt to you. So you're like, well, that's not going to fly. That's not how we run our business. You're going to go confront them at some warehouse. And so you kind of travel there, and this is where you're kind of introduced to the quarantine zone. You're having to sneak around. Be careful not to alert any authority figures because this area is highly policed, so you're going through like abandoned buildings and whatnot. You finally get to the outside the warehouse, and you confront this guy named Robert, and he runs, and you chase him, and then you kill him, and you still don't have any weapons. And so all of a sudden, kind of from out of nowhere, this new character appears. Her name is Marlene, and she's kind of like a leader or like higher up in an organization called the Fireflies. I'm not really sure. Can you define the Fireflies for me? Because I'm not really sure I have a full grasp on like who the Fireflies are in this universe.
If they describe who the Fireflies are with any detail, I missed it, and it's buried deep. I have to imagine it's something that they kind of flesh out in the DLC. And then apparently there is a novel or like short story that goes that ties in as well, that I had only just recently discovered.
We're not going to talk about any of that.
No. But I couldn't tell you what the Fireflies are aside from an organized group of people with a like-minded cause. So.
There's some fringe organization that the rest of society doesn't seem to like that much, but they do things.
Yeah, they don't seem to play ball with whatever system has been like eked out in the chaos or in the aftermath of the chaos.
So it would make sense because we're smugglers that the Fireflies are comfortable approaching us, and Marlene offers us weapons, but we have to smuggle a quote-unquote package back to Boston's Capitol building. And we're like, okay, find, and we find out that the package is actually a teenage girl named Ellie. And that's kind of where that chapter ends.
How old is Ellie? I forget.
She seemed like really early teens. I don't know how old she is, to be honest with you.
Like, at one point, we'll meet another young boy named Henry. Or Sam.
She's 14. She's 14.
She's 4. Okay. So that's pretty young. Pretty young to go, traipsing across the country in post-apocalyptic zombie land.
Right. But she's born into it.
Right. Exactly.
This is flashing forward 20 years.
20 long years.
We were already 6 years into this apocalyptic thing when she was born.
Right. And so what does that put Joel at? It puts him pretty old. Like, I can't imagine he's like any younger than 45.
Yeah, hold on, I'm about to look that up.
But he's got to be closer, if not over 50. But the man's still like...
He's in his 40s is all it says.
Okay, so, but again, I'm going to say late 40s because there's just no way. He had like a 12 to 14-year-old daughter.
Yeah, but it does mention later in the game that like Joel wanted to go to college, but he became a father too young. So let's assume he was like 17, 18 when he became a father.
Yeah, but then at 12, and then at 20, so 45. We'll say 45.
Yeah, so I mean, it's conceivable he could be in his 40s.
Right. No, it is, but we're pushing it, and he's very, very fit, and like, and then especially with Last of Us, I don't know, I feel like they made him a little too old sometimes when I see the things that he does, and it never seems to play a factor. Not that you can't be these things, but...
You don't understand. You get a certain age and you develop what they call old man muscle. And everything hardens in your body. It doesn't matter if you've got a beer belly, that becomes muscle. You got really fat arms, that becomes muscle. And then, like, my dad can still beat me at basketball, and he's 52 or something like that. So, like, I don't know, man.
I can't wait.
I know, exactly. I'm waiting for this, this like athletic ability and muscle and strength. I could carry anything, do it. I think you also develop the ability to fix anything. I'm waiting for that one. I'm really psyched about that.
Anyway, keep going.
Okay, so that's chapter 2. So chapter 3, we have just been introduced to Ellie. So then in this portion of the game, chapter 3, we are making our way back to the Capitol building. And we get caught by a soldier from the quarantine zone, and we all three are getting scanned for infection. Well, Ellie freaks out, and she attacks the soldier. The soldier, obviously is going to defend himself, and then Joel kills the soldier. And in this scramble, they realized that on the ground was the scanner that they had scanned Ellie with, and she actually tested positive for this infection. Which, obviously leads to you becoming one of these infected, is what they call them, or zombies or whatever. And then so when Joel and Tess question Ellie, she insists that her bite is 3 weeks old. And Joel doesn't believe her, and he's kind of saying that, like, we got set up, blah, blah, blah. Why would the Fireflies do this to us? And then more soldiers show up, and they kind of have to just run. They don't really have time to deal with this right now. And they run into an museum where they encounter more infected. They get separated, but they reconvene and they escape by getting off the roof. And they make their way to the Capitol building in Boston, which is where Joel and Tess were supposed to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies, only to discover that the Fireflies have been wiped out by the military. And Joel's like, we should just be done with this. Like, mission aborted. Like, we are totally done. And this is where Tess reveals that she's actually been bitten, and only in a matter of hours, her wound already looks worse than Ellie's. So she's like, I have to believe Ellie at this point that she did get bitten, and there's something... What?
I think they've already proved by the time that Tess reveals her infection that Ellie is immune, because doesn't she walk through the spores?
That could be. This is a section that I didn't rewatch, so that very well could be.
Because I think by the time that Tess reveals, we already believe Ellie, and so it's like it just kind of ties into the severity of what's happening to Tess and the miraculousness that Ellie isn't, dying in the same way that she is.
Sure. And so what ends up happening is more soldiers and military show up, and then Tess kind of sacrifices herself so that Joel and Ellie can escape into the subway station. And she doesn't want to go out, becoming an infected, because I don't remember at what point in the lore this is introduced, but supposedly you have some level of consciousness as this infection is attacking like the cordyceps of your brain or whatever, or the cordyceps are attacking your brain. I don't know which. But apparently you have some level of consciousness and you just can't control. You're a passenger. You can't control what's happening to your body.
Yeah, at some point, at the very least, the creators do go on record explaining the nature of, if not somewhere in the extra material. But yeah, exactly like you said, like you are a slave to this fungus is what it technically is. It's not like
much like the ants you like in real life, same thing.
Exactly. It's based off that. I can't remember the name of that exact organism, but yeah, before they turn into the full-blown clickers, they are still inside their own brain in some sort of, tormented state at the very least.
So Tess doesn't want to end up like that. So she's like, screw it, I'm going to sacrifice myself and deal with this, and you guys just go, because I'm gone anyway. And so at this point, Joel and Ellie escape into the subway station, and that is the end of chapter 3.
What'd you think of Tess?
Honestly, it's weird because I don't remember her being in the game for that long, but I was watching a replay with Nick Scarpino from Kinda Funny and Greg Miller, and like they were 5.5 hours into the game and Tess was still there. So I'm like, okay, well, obviously she stuck around for longer than I remember. So overall, I guess she didn't make a huge impact on me, but I mean, she's a fine character.
Yeah, overall, she isn't in the she isn't in the majority of the game, but she is, like you said, in it more than probably I think people remember. I liked her a lot. I don't know why. I enjoyed the character. I like I was going to say the model, but like they literally modeled all these people after people for the most part. Not necessarily the voice actors and mocap actors, but
yeah, they modeled Ellie after Ellen Page.
We'll talk about that in a little while.
Right.
But no, I like Tess. I couldn't really tell you exactly why, but she had the right kind of spunk, she was like, Ellie doesn't take Joel's crap either, but she's also a kid. And so she rejects his authority in the way that kids reject authority. And it's like, it's not like an authentic way of rejecting authority. There's no real, there's no authority in your rejection of this authority. But Tess, obviously, Joel respects Tess, and obviously there's probably some sort of romantic, involvement at some point, whether that was
or at least like physical needs.
Exactly.
Sort of
if it was just physical, or if it was, more than that, an actual, sounds stupid to say because, they're adults, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of thing. But no, I liked her, and I felt that, and you'll get these as major sections and chapters, and usually with somebody's death. And this is the second one technically after Sarah. But, because it happens off screen. Like she starts yelling something and you hear the gunfire, as you're walking into the escape route. And there's Tess, she's gone. Boom.
Yeah, I would say in terms of typically you described this game, I think, very aptly in saying that each section of it felt like a vignette, and you have this little kind of bite-sized story where a character will come in and make an impact and then exit, and you'll see this as we go through. But I feel like Tess was there for a pretty long time compared to some of these other characters that come and go. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and she's the kind of character that would have normally stuck around in most games. And so it was interesting to, wasn't a huge subversion, especially because of the way the game had played out so far. They make it very clear early on that people are going to die. Probably not necessarily the main characters, at least not until the very end. But yeah.
All right. So then we move on. So we're in the subway station. I have very, very few bullet points for this section. But Joel has a friend who owes him, quote unquote, named Bill. Bill's a bit of a doomsday prepper, hoarder kind of guy. And Bill also is the guy who you could get resources from. So they're going to go there and get a car. So they go to Bill's and they're asking him for a car. And he's like, well, I don't have one that's functional, but this one has everything but a battery. I'm pretty sure I know where we could find a battery. So they all go to this high school where they think there's like a military vehicle that may have a battery. Obviously they have a run-in with an infected and you encounter your first bloater. And then they realize that the battery Bill thought was there is no longer there. They end up escaping into a nearby home where they find Bill's partner, who he had alluded to earlier, another male, committed suicide in that building. And at any rate, that's kind of a moment. And then they end up somehow finding a car. I was a little unclear on that. And they're able to hill start it because it's a manual. And then Joel and Ellie kind of continue on their way. So what do you think about this section?
I love Bill. Bill is played by both. He voices, mocaps, and the characters modeled after the actor as well by W. Earl Brown. And if you've seen a lot of movies and TV in your time, you've probably seen him in something. He's probably best known for his role as, I can't remember the character's name right now, but he's in Deadwood. He's in almost every episode of Deadwood. He's like an enforcer guy. He's a terrific actor. And he does play, he is a bit typecast at this point, and he plays characters like Bill a lot. But, man, they couldn't have got a better guy for him.
I just Googled. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, and they leaned into it. I recognized him the second that he was on screen. And again, just a fantastic character from start to finish, the way he's introduced. So when I started playing earlier this year or late last year, I stopped the second that I met Bill, and then I stopped playing. And I didn't pick it back up until, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So when I started playing again, this is when I started playing. So I'm going to have the freshest memories of this section. And this was great. This was my favorite, the rest of the game is, it's similar. You're going to go to a place and you're going to weave in and out of a building or a dilapidated something. But the neighborhood combined with the school and combined with the way that he had set up this, quote unquote town, as he kept referring to it. And it was just all him. No one's around except him. And he's got it all under lock and key. And here we come to ruin his day and possibly get him killed, And in some ways, we leave him worse off than if he was dead. Here's this, if he had any hope about, I can't remember his partner's name, a former lover, clearly. And so it's just a really sad moment when we see him, hanging from the ceiling in his hideous shirt, which Bill is able to identify. He's like, of course it's him, because you can't recognize his face anymore, because it's been a long time. But it's like no one would wear a shirt that hideous. And there's a note. There's a note from him, a suicide note. Again, he got bit. That's why he killed himself. He wasn't just lonely or something. But there's a note. It's like, Bill, if you're reading this, just know that I hate your effing guts. And I always have. So it's they didn't end well. This is the next, he gets confirmation that he's dead because of this. And you got to wonder, did Ellie and Joel, they could have killed him, and they did not could have killed him. They could have gotten him killed. But did they leave him off in a worse place? Did Bill just go and eat a shotgun later, knowing that this is just the rest of his life, which is something that he's clearly already come to terms with, that everybody in this world has kind of come to terms with. But Bill's obviously old enough to remember what life was. Then he had a life even after it, and even that was taken away from him. And he's hilarious, he does the classic prepper thing in a world where that paid off, to have that kind of mentality.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that the preppers in 2020 in real life are really loving themselves right now with this whole quarantine thing.
Yeah, well, I'm not
They needed to win. They needed to win. They had a bunch of reality TV shows, and they were kind of the butt of a lot of jokes. And then, you know what? Joke's on us.
Unfortunately, those same people probably immediately jumped out of their bunkers and started begging people to reopen the world
and cut their hair.
Exactly.
Cut my hair.
Cut
You
your
know
own.
what? Speaking of which, my wife cut my hair today, and as she's shaving my head, because I'm like, just buzz it, buzz it. We don't have time. She can cut my hair pretty decently, but I was like, we don't have time. Buzz my head. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. So she's buzzing my hair, and she gets about halfway done, and she kind of like smiles and smirks, and she's like, do you like it? I'm like, well, that's really encouraging, hon. Thanks. So I guess she doesn't like it when I shave my head.
That's funny.
But she did it anyway.
Yep.
So I got a question for you on this particular section of the game. You know, they kind of make it a point to, I mean, Bill's character's gay, right? And then Ellie kind of comments on it later in the game of like, hey, I found like this weird magazine that had pages stuck together and pictures of naked guys, and you know, Joel doesn't really want to talk about it, and then Ellie's like, just kidding, I know what this stuff is, you don't have to talk to me about it. Ellie's 14, right?
Yep. I
had caught no hint in this first game that Ellie character was homosexual.
There is no hint. You'd have to, if you said, oh, I knew, you'd have to show me why. But for the most part, I would call you not a liar, but like you're just reading into something that isn't there. Like you just took a shot in the dark and a huge guess under no true evidence whatsoever.
Right. And then here's the thing I thought was interesting is they make a big deal of that being a very big part of the DLC Left Behind, because she has this relationship with her friend Riley, right?
I guess I haven't seen or played it, So
anyway, well, I thought it was interesting because obviously the Left Behind was the DLC, so it's actually prequel material, but came out in 2015. So it actually came out in May of 2015. Gay marriage was legalized federally in the U.S. in June of 2015. So I thought that was a little bit interesting of the commentary, and I just was wondering if you think that the creators of the game intended Ellie to be gay in the first game.
Probably. You know, these things with writers, these kinds of things usually are known to them. You know, like it's a very peculiar relationship that a writer has with a character, and to hear them talk about it, but it wouldn't surprise me. And if and I can't prove that they didn't, you know, if that's what they say, that's what they say. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And so I would think likely the answer is yes.
It's interesting, especially with like how isn't Ellen Page openly gay?
Yes.
And they definitely made this character model look like Ellen Page. I mean, so much so that I think Ellen Page sued Naughty Dog because of the likeness. They say this. She said they stole her likeness.
I see it, but I don't see it that much. I mean, like all of a sudden, Ellen Page is every pale, short, brunette girl with like a tomboyish figure. Like, I mean, like, come on. She's the most famous person who fits that description. So now she's Ellen. Like, they're all her. Like, I've seen other people make similar comments about other characters.
And that's the thing, though, is that she's also a gay woman as well. It's just interesting. It's interesting the parallels.
Neil Druckmann has a crush on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I just thought this was interesting because she kind of it almost feels like she's poking fun a little bit of Bill for being gay, but she herself is also gay.
That's not what she's poking fun of him for being a gross man, not a gay man.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of more what
I think it's just mean-spirited in general. Like, this guy is a human being with things. It's like, okay, she's doing what teenagers do, which is they have slight psychopathic, sociopathic tendencies to just
did.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, totally get it. We're the worst.
Yes,
I'm not going to say what we think. But no, I just thought this was interesting, and I kind of feel like, you know, obviously I'm coming from a place of privilege. I'm a straight white male, so like I've you know, that's never ever been an obstacle for me, but I found this to be interesting, and I've reflected on it, and I think like we need both types of stories in all types of media. So this, like, if the DLC, and I don't know because I haven't played it, but if it does rely heavily on Ellie's sexuality, then great. But then also I've seen it done really, really what I've seen recently is really, really neat. Like, there's a character in the Netflix show, The Politician, who is just like a trans man in high school. And they literally never talk about it. They never talk about his sexuality at all. He's just a character in the show. But you can tell he's a trans man. And it's like, awesome. Cool. That doesn't have to be his only identity. He's just a character in the show. And that's awesome. But, you know, I feel like we also need those stories that are kind of more tied to the character's sexuality. But another cool example is, like, there's a random female cop in the Disney Pixar film Onward, and she just, like, passingly references her girlfriend's daughter. And I'm like, oh, that's cool too. You know, like, it doesn't have to be this character's entire identity. It doesn't have to be what this whole thing is all about. But at the same time, it can be. So I think you need both types to just be like, oh, cool, there's these characters who are just kind of there, and they have this, you know, they are gay or trans or whatever, and cool. And we don't have to dwell on it. And it's just like, they're there. And it's totally normal, because it is totally normal. But then also, if we want to kind of highlight that and their struggles and their things, then we have those types of stories too. Anyway, I just want to kind of comment on that, because I've seen it handled different ways in different forms of media, and I just think it's interesting.
It is interesting.
My key light just went out. I'm not happy about these lights. I gotta get the power adapters for these bad boys.
Yes.
I'm gonna be in the dark here in about 20 minutes.
Oh no, let's go.
Okay, chapter 5, baby. Let's keep going.
How many chapters are there?
12.
Do they organize them by, like, I don't ever remember any part saying, oh, this is the chapter.
I vaguely do, but maybe
I just
not.
played it and they didn't do that. When the seasons change, which clearly coincide with the chapters, I'm just wondering if that's a thing, or if that's just thing people have, like, because there are obviously moments in time during the game where it's like, okay, this would be the end of a quote-unquote chapter. But they have
names.
All right, well, I don't know. Like, they don't come across on the screen. Like, I don't even know. I don't know. I was just curious, that's all.
Chapter 5. Pittsburgh. All right, so burp break, hold on. Okay. Chapter 5. They are heading to Tommy's. We find out that he used to be a Firefly. They have a passing conversation about Bill's porno mags in the car. As they're driving, they kind of hit a part in this city that they're going through that they can't make through in the car, and they end up having to kind of slow down / stop, and then they get held up at gunpoint. Somehow during the struggle, the car is wrecked, but they manage to escape, and they run into a hotel. They get separated when an elevator falls, so Ellie goes up and Joel goes down, but they find their way through the hotel, and they continue into the financial district. They encounter more quote-unquote hunters, which are basically like this bandit gang that runs this city. They overthrew the military in this area, but so they kind of run things here. Joel and Ellie defeat the hunters, and Joel gives Ellie a gun at this point. On their way out of the city, they're jumped. Joel fends off the attacker, but he's held up at gunpoint by a small boy, probably about Ellie's age. The attacker tells the boy to stop, and then they introduce themselves as Henry and Sam, who are brothers. So I think Henry's the older brother and Sam's the younger brother. So Joel and Ellie end up teaming up with Henry and Sam, and then they want to escape the city. So the city is kind of a fortified city, and it's patrolled by the hunters, and now they're kind of stuck in it, and they need to figure out a way to get out. So they decide that they're going to try to escape at night because there aren't as many guards, and the escape plan that they try to get out of the city, but it kind of goes downhill, and Sam and Henry are kind of out of the city wall, but Joel and Ellie aren't quite yet, and Sam and Henry, and things are going downhill, and they're getting attacked by hunters. Sam and Henry decide they're going to abandon ship. They're just going to go and take their freedom. Joel and Ellie end up having to jump off a bridge into a river to escape the hunters, and that's kind of where we end on that chapter. So what do you think about this chapter, Karch?
I didn't like it.
Why?
I like the introduction of Sam and Henry because I like them as characters, but I just found it to be boring. I thought it was a really boring chapter. Nothing happens in it. Like almost nothing happens in it. It's strictly gameplay, and this game is not good enough to hold up. It's not good enough to stand on its gameplay alone. It's just a really boring Uncharted game at that point.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you say that because if you had asked me totally from memory, does this game's gameplay hold up? I would have been like, yeah. But I'm watching a lot of it, and I find myself, just like you said, being a little bit bored by the traversal and all the things you have to do. And I'm just like, give me to the story. And so it's almost like you're playing through the game just to get to the next story beat. And when you hear Spoilercast and the people talk about this game, obviously it's heavily story oriented. No one ever says like, oh, I love the combat. It's not God of War, right? It's not Bloodborne. It's not any of those games that have fantastic combat mechanics. It does use, I don't want to say that it uses story as a crutch, but it definitely uses story heavily, right?
Right. The gameplay's the crutch to like prop up what would just be a movie. You know, we'll dive into the cinematic nature and how well that works and doesn't work for this, and how I like it or how you like it and all that. But like, you know, a crutch is mean. Crutch is not the right word. And like to say it doesn't hold up isn't true, but to say it's fun or good, to say it's fun or good in this day and age, no, I don't think it is. I think it's serviceable. I think it's passable. I think it gets the job done. But for the most part, unless you love the stealth aspect, which is entirely unnecessary on any but the hardest of difficulties, it's kind of fun, but it's unnecessary and slow. It's fine. It's fine.
That's so interesting because that is one question that I had about this is like, is this game quote unquote fun to play? And it's really hard to judge this game in 2020 considering it was a PlayStation 3 game that came out in 2013. But watching it being played as I'm looking at these old or not even old, but these kind of newer playthroughs, the combat and the gunplay seems so dated. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a ton to say about it, but you're right. It seems like it is in a lot of ways. It does feel like a really boring or not like a poorly executed Uncharted.
Yeah, and because it is like poorly executed is not correct. It's just like the gameplay in Uncharted holds up. The graphics don't always, especially in the first one. The story gets better with each one, like the way they tell it, the performances, etc., the dialogue. But the combat is still fun if you kind of like it. You know, this is all under the idea that you even kind of enjoy third-person shooting, you know, that kind of stuff.
It's so interesting because I remember the combat, especially the melee, seeming so like raw and brutal and like intentional and like
it is,
you know, but it's nothing like say God of War, right? I mean, in a lot of ways, it feels like you're pushing a button and triggering like this little predetermined cinematic, right?
Yeah. So just to talk about that real quick, this game commits my least favorite, we'll call it just gaming sin, especially in survival horror. I hate being so ineffective in melee combat in a game that does not give me a good excuse to why I shouldn't be good at melee combat. It's stupid that my lead pipe breaks so easily. I'm not usually one for immersion breaking, but when it comes to zombie games, I'm always going to have like 4 sticks that are each 3 feet long, and you're never going to find me without one. I'm going to find that piece of rebar that they're not going to break. That's not how it works. I should always have a melee option. And if you don't want that to work for me, swarm me. Make it realistic as to why that's not going to be the reason I can get out of this thing. But don't just take away my ability to bash somebody's head in. It's stupid.
Agreed. And we've gone through this with other games as well recently. as recently as
Resident Evil 2.
Well, Resident Evil 2, and then even they have the knife, and then you stick them, you stab the knife in, and maybe you get it back, and maybe you don't. It just depends. But Half-Life Alyx is the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
It's just like I can't get over it. I don't know why I can't, partially because I always tend to melee in anything I play. Like I very rarely choose range if melee is an option. Even Horizon, where melee just really isn't an option, I'll go out of my way to try to like whack the dinosaurs down.
Bam, bam.
Yep. But overall, this chapter is just that's dull until at the very end when you meet Sam and Henry, and then that's kind of exciting because it's always fun when new characters that aren't Joel and Ellie come into the mix to just kind of reflect what they've been experiencing, and just more voices in the story. Do you remember much of it? Do you have any thoughts on it? I don't remember
much of it, but it's interesting that you say that, because as I was watching the playthroughs of this game, because I wanted to get some sense of like, okay, I played it in 2014, I had my memories of it, but what does it feel like in 2020? Obviously, I don't own this. I don't own the disc anymore. I think I gave it to Greg and he sold it. So
bad.
Worst. So I wanted to get some semblance of like, what does this game feel like to play in 2020? So I was watching some playthroughs, and it is interesting because like as I'm going through the story beats here, I definitely skipped all the parts where it's like, well, you have to go from point A to point B, which is all the gameplay parts.
Right.
And I'm like, and it's because it was boring.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, okay, you I don't know. It just seemed like I skimmed through what seemed like hours of you just stealthing through an abandoned building, trying not to get killed by any sort of infected.
It was. It felt. If it wasn't actually longest, it felt the longest compared to something like Winter.
Yeah.
Which is probably up close to, if not similarly lengthed, but it doesn't feel like it at all because it's like paced way better. I guess that's the problem. For a game that's really well paced almost the entire time, this section isn't. Man, that's some loud thunder. I can hear it through my headphones.
I hear that too.
Yeah.
Thunder's on our end, everybody.
Love it. All right, next chapter.
All right, chapter 6 is called The Suburbs. So Joel and Ellie had just jumped off a bridge into a river to escape from some hunters. And Joel awakes on the riverbank along with Sam and Henry, and Joel is mad. But basically, Henry de-escalates by being like, "Well, what would you have done if the roles were reversed?" And Joel's like, "Nah, I would have left you there." So they kind of keep walking.
Game.
Huh?
I said game recognized game.
Exactly, right? So then we walk and we find this abandoned boat, and then they discover the dead body of some dude named Ishmael. And this kind of the story as you go through this chapter is you find out that Ish survived the initial outbreak because he was out on a boat, and then when he came back, he kind of figured out what was going on pretty quickly, and he built a small community, but that community got overrun because somebody left their safety door open, and they ended up getting trapped in a room, and I guess rather than let everybody get turned, he shot all the kids and then committed suicide.
Yeah, so it's a heartbreaking little story that they buried in this entire little section here.
How do you find that out? Because I don't really remember this, so I must have just like been trekking at this point and not really stopped to look at anything.
So you start out on that beach or whatever, the bank, and there's a boat. You find the boat and there's a note, and like it kind of clues you into this breadcrumb. And like as you go, you just keep finding notes and stuff. I don't know if there's anything that ever explicitly, because like who's gonna? It's not like in Lord of the Rings where they wrote in a giant musty tome like, "Yep, we're barricaded and the goblins are coming and we can't get out." I'm writing here in my story journal, so that's not happening in this game. So as far as that part at the end where somebody opens the, like I don't remember reading or finding out how that their little enclave gets invaded, but it does. It doesn't really matter why. and you see the bodies. You see the little bodies. You see it happen there's like a nursery, like a little school area for like clearly like, kindergarten, first grade kind of style aged kids, amidst the rest of it, which is just like, they made a life for themselves here. And you can just see that it just didn't work out, like, because there's corpses everywhere and there's nobody left. And I mean, that's really all the storytelling and, clues that you need. You can piece everything else together, like in your own imagination, really.
Sure. I find it kind of interesting because it seems like most people that play this game hit this story beat, and it is very much, I don't know if I'd call it skippable, but I don't remember this.
I mean, it's funny. Again, this section isn't as boring as the previous one, but you are also like, you're in like the sewers, I guess is what it is, right?
Well, you're in the sewers as you go through this section, yeah.
Yeah, and so like everything it's got a lot of dark areas. It's got a lot of puzzle stuff. It's got the dumbest, most annoying, Ellie can't swim section. It's actually the part where it introduces Joel's ability to swim underwater, and of course everybody hates underwater portions. That's why no one's going to play Horizon Zero Dawn. Right.
No one's going to play Horizon 2.
Forbidden West.
Forbidden West, also forbidden for me.
So that's probably why it's possibly skippable in your memory, because like it's not in your face. It's not like any of the characters sit down with like any intentionality and be like, let's talk about what happened here, because that's not the strength of the game. The strength of the game comes in piecing together these stories on your own of a broken, bygone age. Not that this happened before the outbreak, but
happened before you got there.
Exactly. For a while it seems. I don't know. It's aside from that though, it's not a memorable thing. Like none of this is bad, but is any of this like? That's what I keep asking myself. Like, is any of this like really something to write home about? Like, games have done this before, maybe not quite as well, but games have had environmental storytelling. Games have had stories told to you through scenery and notes left by people who are no longer there. This is not like a new thing. Fallout 3 did stuff like this all over the place in both Fallout 3 Basic, the original, and New Vegas.
But it's also, people love that game.
Sure, of course, but no one's gonna like, and for good reason. But at the same time, no one's gonna say Fallout is anywhere. They're not gonna say it holds a candle to the way that The Last of Us tells its story. But like, it's so short. Not the game, but this section, this idea that this Ishmael character, found a life and lost it. Not just his actual life, but the life he built with these people. So I don't know. You ask why it's so skippable, because it's like it's almost nothing. Like,
right?
It's we're talking about it for a while, but like there's not much to talk about. Well, that was cool, and that's it.
Yeah, and I want to talk about. Well, I want to hold off this conversation for another part of the game that we haven't gotten to yet, but. Let's move on for now, and we'll kind of circle back to this discussion of like, do people overhype these storytelling characteristics that this game has that other games have too, but this one did really well. So we continue down the sewers trying to get to the radio tower. We encounter some infected. We decide that we're going to turn in for the night, and then we kind of bond. So Henry and Joel talk, and Sam and Ellie talk. And then as a kind of omniscient narrator or viewer, we find out that Sam has been bit, because Ellie and Sam have this kind of interaction. She gives him this toy. And then as she is leaving the room, he pulls up his pant leg, and we find out that Sam has been bit. So Joel and Ellie don't know this, and Henry doesn't know this, but we as the kind of viewer know this. And then the next morning, Sam's sleeping in, Henry's cooking breakfast, Joel is awake, Ellie's awake, and they're like, hey, why isn't Sam up? And Henry's like, oh, he's sleeping in for once, just let him sleep or go wake him up, whatever. And so Ellie goes in to wake him up, and Sam has turned overnight, and Ellie's attacked. As she's being attacked, there's a little bit of panic. There's a little bit of hesitation. Henry's kind of like debating, do I kill my brother or not? Obviously, he is turned. Like, there's no saving him, but I don't want to kill him. He's my brother. Joel goes to do it, and Henry stops him. But Henry ends up shooting him. And then almost instantaneously after, Henry can't really process everything that he just witnessed, and he ends up shooting himself. Well, he almost shoots Joel. He almost blames Joel, and I assume that's just because, like, during the course of their encounter with each other is when Sam gets bit. But yeah, so Henry turns the gun on Joel, and Joel tries to say, like, de-escalate the situation. Say, I'm going to take the gun, calm down, it's okay. But Henry's not hearing it, and he ends up shooting himself. So, and that's the end of that section. What did you think about that, Karch?
That's my favorite scene in the whole game.
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think I said the beginning was my favorite part. I think as a whole, the beginning might be my favorite part, but that singular scene where, Sam busts through the door, he's got Ellie, Joel's trying to reach for the gun, Henry shoots at him, shoots Henry, aims it at Joel, turns around on him. It's just so fast. Like, it's
really well done.
And it's not a cliche, but it's a scene you've seen. This is a scenario that has played out in all kinds of media, not just zombie stuff, but very similar, tragedy. What have I done? I'm dead, but there's no fanfare, and it speaks to a desperation I'll hopefully never understand, to have something, not that your brother who you love more than anybody in the world, because there's no one else in the world for you, dying, like, wouldn't be a devastating thing, but to have something happen to you that just utterly snaps everything that you are and everything that you've held on to, and in that moment you just immediately you kill yourself because there's no hope. Your hope has disintegrated in 40 seconds.
And you did it.
I mean, you didn't do it, but yeah, that's how you view it. You didn't save him even before, like, you couldn't save him from it. You didn't protect him enough. I mean, they ever make it clear? Like, I don't remember a part where, like, Sam's even somewhat in danger.
Well, there is a part where you're going through the sewers where, like, I think Sam and Henry go left and you and Ellie go right. But I don't know when exactly that bite happened. I don't know that that's clear. Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, and it ends the chapter and it ends the season. That's when you go into fall, I think. And, like, there a large amount of time has passed, and they're much, much further west than they were. And we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I liked it. I loved the Sam and Henry characters, and it was a really tragic way to see them leave compared to even Tess, or Sarah for that matter.
Yeah. And I have to commend the voice acting here, because
absolutely.
Reading it, I'm like, it's a little bit lame, but, like, seeing it play out, you're like, oh my gosh, they did a fantastic job. Like,
yeah, no, it's
really.
Something that cannot be denied is the performance for every single character in this entire game. Every single character, except for maybe a random mook here or there that doesn't really matter at all, was expertly casted and expertly performed.
And I think that's part of why people hold this to a higher regard. Mm-hmm. I think that's...
And if I had played it then, I would probably have agreed then too. But I have, unfortunately, just having waited so long, I have seen, the fruits of the labor of the industry, having witnessed this game and been inspired by it, come and do it better, or at the least the same, if not better.
Well, yeah, I mean, and even if it's not the same genre, you see the same level of execution of what it's trying to accomplish. And I would hold up games like God of War 2018 and say, like, that's one where, you know, in terms of what it was trying to accomplish, it was executed to the same level as this game. But I think to date, in terms of a total package, this game was the best at what it did at the time, and I think that's why it gets the accolades that it gets. Yeah,
you know, like these days you got Kingdom Hearts 3 and when Goofy
go.
Oh, I had a bit prepared.
Oh, go away. Okay. All right, let's move on to this next chapter. Okay, we're in chapter 7. We're in Tommy's Dam. So you flash forward a few months. You're in fall. Joel and Ellie are in Wyoming. We learn that I think I said this earlier, but for whatever reason I write this down here. We learned that Tommy used to be in the Fireflies and he has since left.
Yeah.
So Joel basically, you arrive there, you're welcomed, blah, blah, blah. Whatever happens. I don't know because I didn't watch this part. Joel asks Tommy to take Ellie to the Fireflies. He tells him about the immunity. He appeals to, like, this is your cause, blah, blah, blah. These are your people. And during this conversation, they're attacked by bandits. You dispatch the bandits pretty easily, I believe. At this point, Tommy agrees to take Ellie, but Ellie's catching on to this vibe, and she ends up running away, suspecting that Joel's going to leave her. So I guess Joel and Tommy trek her. They fight some more bandits, and then at the end of this little whatever interaction, Joel has a change of heart, and he tells Tommy he's going to take Ellie, and then Tommy tells Joel where to find the Fireflies at some sort of college campus in Colorado. And then Joel and Ellie kind of continue on from there.
These Fireflies suck, by the way. Can't stand them.
Yeah, they keep moving, man. What's the deal?
How do they get anything done?
How do they have a research facility?
Right, they got a doctor ready to do a thing at the end. It's whatever.
Whatever. Get out of here. That's why this game is terrible.
Yep.
So unrealistic. Well, any thoughts on this section? It seemed very story driven, not so much.
It was. It was a lot more story driven than probably any other section, except for the beginning. Let's see. So, to the point where the combat almost seemed forced. Like when she runs off on the horse, and you have to run off, and she just happens to run into another group of. And this is a complaint I have with the game in general. Like, there's too many antagonistic forces just out and about. And I guess they have technically traveled a huge amount of space, and so
but it seems like every time you turn around, you're
just a bunch of murder hobos
or whatever. Like, it's like, come on, really?
Like 20 years in, and you don't have like more settlements that aren't like military enforced quarantine zones. I just don't buy it. But what do I know? I'm an idiot who doesn't know anything, honestly, for real.
If the 2020 coronavirus has taught me anything, it's that the world is terrible at executing any sort of concerted effort to contain anything, to preserve anything, to make anything good. So, and it's a little less far-fetched than I thought.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're very correct about that. But, it's interesting. It's always fun to see, so we already have the QZs. That's quarantine zone for short. But you have a spin on that where obviously they're not quarantined per se, but they are safe. And they have their own little commune. And they're going to try to carve out a life for themselves for more than just like 4 people, similar to what we saw with Ishmael and his troop. But they've got power, they're sitting on a power plant, which is a huge step up compared to a lot of people. Tommy's kind of whatever. His wife is barely a character at all. I felt like the inclusion of horses was a little self-indulgent. Like, oh look, we're gonna animate horses, and aren't horses beautiful? I don't like horses. I have a thing.
Listen, if you're gonna do horses, you got to do it like Red Dead Redemption 2, and you got to have horse testicle physics.
Yes. Otherwise,
or don't do it. Don't even have horses in your game if you're not gonna have that.
But no,
I want cold weather. The horse testicles,
constrict,
and then warm weather. Horse testicles descend. I need that. If you're not going to have that level of realism, then don't make a game.
Don't make it. You suck, Naughty Dog.
Yeah, you are terrible at horses. Yeah.
What else? Let's see. The part in the beginning with the dam is stupid because it's another swimming mini game, and it's just, what was the point? What was the point of making me? Like, when all was said and done, it was probably like 30 minutes of wasted time. It was wasted time. There's this nice scene, though, where you come across a grave, like unmarked, I think. Ellie puts down that, like, the toy. She finds out she still has the toy that she gave Sam because she took it with her. I think she puts it there, and she's like, I want to talk about their deaths. And Joel's like, we don't do that because I'm a man. And I don't even really like you that much yet.
I don't have feelings.
And this is where Ellie learns about Sarah and a little bit of Joel's past. I think Joel has a moment where he's like, don't you talk about her? Like you don't even know where you're talking about, kind of thing.
Yeah. Because she like stole a picture from him or something.
Yeah. And she gives that to him later. But it is a turning point in the relationship at the end because he chases her down, and obviously he changes his mind, even though Tommy's willing to do it for some reason.
Reluctantly, it's very reluctant. I think what I've seen is that Tommy realizes how much Joel cares for Ellie, and he's like, okay, if you're gonna have to turn her over to the Fireflies, then maybe I should be the person to do it because I can do it without the emotion that you obviously have for her.
I mean, I don't think it's crossed his mind that he has to turn her over per se.
I don't know. That's the only really explanation, really.
No, I think he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to lose anything. He doesn't want to create something that can be lost. I think it's as simple as that at that point.
Sure.
But then he mans up and he commits to doing what he said he was going to do. And also, I think what he sees really, even less so than Ellie's reaction, is more so looking at Tommy and his wife, because they are married. We have a marriage in the post-apocalypse, and he can't bring himself to separate them more so than he can't bring himself to leave Ellie yet. Like, obviously, their affection is building. He doesn't hate her, but it's not till the next chapter that you're really going to get like the full-on, we're in this together forever, you and me, kid kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel the same way about my dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chapter 8. They're in this college campus. They're entering this science building. It is deserted. We find out that once again, or not yet, the Fireflies are not there where they should be. But we do find out through some recordings that they are testing the effects of cordyceps brain infection on monkeys to find a cure. We listen to some tapes and we find out that the Fireflies have moved on to Salt Lake City. As this is happening, some looters burst in. Joel and Ellie run. Joel punches a looter. They're like on a roof. The looter kind of drags Joel down with him off this balcony. The looter is dead on impact, and Joel has been impaled on some rebar. Ellie and Joel manage to get to a horse to run away. As they're riding off, Joel kind of slumps off the horse, and Ellie comes to his aid, and this scene turns to black. What do you think, Karch?
I love the part once he gets the rebar through him, because you still get to control the character until he passes out. And it's always fun when they kind of like incorporate what would normally just be a cinematic.
Right.
Because the character can't move. Like every time you try to move him, he stumbles. But, Ellie's killing things, mostly infected and other things. And for the most part, it's all gameplay oriented. She has at this point officially through the story killed her first person, several chapters ago. Which is kind of brushed over a little bit much. Like, I feel like there's a similar scene in God of War, for example, where Atreus kills his first person. And it's a bigger deal, I feel, in that game than he's a little bit younger. But that was like a monster person. Basically like when she kills the clickers, no big deal. But she just kills a real human, in self-defense. It's not, nobody's like questioning the morality of it, but I don't know. I feel like they brushed over it too quickly.
Well, I wonder if we'd have a different perspective on it if we had played the DLC Left Behind. I don't know because I haven't played it.
I very much doubt it. It's the first person she's killed, not in the game.
Does it make that clear? Because
yes.
Did she kill anybody? Okay.
Yes. No, it's very obvious. Anyway, to me, I thought it was. If I read it wrong, then I guess that's on me. But yeah. So at this point, Joel's still doing the heavy lifting now. He's the one who's doing all the killing from a story perspective, as far as I interpreted it. And so now she's like, trying to get him out of there. And Joel's still the one who, even though he's, dying, he's shooting people as they burst through the door.
Doesn't she say something to the effect of like, what do I do?
Yeah. She's like begging him to get up, as a kid does when they're starting to feel panicky and the adult can't do anything. And,
right. My son does that to me like every Saturday morning.
And it's kind of weird because like they're not out of danger when he collapses. Like they're still in like the middle of the campus. I'm not sure how she gets away. It's a bit of a stretch to imagine that she gets them out safely.
But it just cuts to black and it just goes to like flash forward. So we just don't know.
We just don't know. But like where we do know they left off, it's a little unbelievable that she was able to get him safely to where he gets. It's just a stretch. That's all. It's a little bit of suspensive belief and all that.
Sure. I mean, I could see if somehow she got him back on the horse or something.
Right. Which they do still have the horse at this point. So that's the best explanation, is the horse wasn't far off and she got him on. Maybe he was barely conscious or something.
So so we flash forward to winter, and this is the first time that you're actually playing as Ellie, and you are hunting a deer, and with a bow, and you don't at this point you don't know if Joel is alive or not.
I did because I knew the ending.
Well, but
I'm just saying because it impacts the way the scene plays out for me.
I don't think anybody thought Joel was dead.
Well,
even me playing, I specifically remember this scene in 2014, and I did not think Joel was dead. Like I just didn't, because I know how games are. I know how narratives go. Like I was like, they didn't just kill a character. They're not going to leave us with Ellie only for another 3-4 hours. Like it's not going to happen.
I will say that even though I did know, I had a strong foreboding sense for his outcome. Like if that's how well they sold it. I should say, like if I hadn't known, I would be strongly considering, is he dead or is he going to die very soon? Because like, it's a bit miraculous that he recovers, No,
I agree with you, but at the same time, it's fiction. Of course. I never had any doubt in my mind that he was going to be alive.
Sure.
And I had no indication of the ending. So we're hunting a deer, and as we kill the deer, there's this little hunting sequence where you have to shoot it a few times with the bow and you kill it. And then there's some strangers that appear that also want the deer, but they know that you killed it. And so they offer to trade you.
Two men, for what it's worth.
Yeah, two. Yeah, David and James, we find out later. But they offer to trade you for the deer. And so they're like, what do you want? Do you want guns? What do you want? You want ammo? And she's like, I need medicine. And that's the point at which you're like, oh, medicine, probably because of Joel.
Right.
And
and by the way, the David character played by, what's his name?
No clue.
Nathan Drake. Who's Nathan Drake?
Troy Bateman?
No, Troy Baker's
Troy
Joel.
Baker?
Who's the other one? It's always him and the other guy.
Neil Druckmann.
No. Oh, my goodness.
Hold on. Who's it?
Take away my gamer license.
Yeah, you suck. Why you brought that up so that we could like?
Nolan North.
Nolan North.
Yeah.
God, we're terrible. Just unsubscribe. Sorry, everybody.
Please.
Sorry we put you through this. Sorry we came up with 16 episodes just to waste your time. Okay, so there's two men, David and James. They offer to trade her, Ellie, for this deer. Ellie asks for medicine. And then, so David's like, okay, James, go get medicine. And Ellie's holding David at gunpoint. As this is happening, they're kind of talking. And they get bombarded by infected, so they have to run. They somehow make their way out of that. And as they're sitting down and kind of like decompressing by a fire, David tells Ellie about how he sent some men out for some supplies a couple weeks back, and they were killed by a quote-unquote crazy man traveling with a little girl. And at that point, Ellie's like, oh, I'm found out, crap. So she stands up and she points a rifle at him. And kind of at that point is when James returns with the medicine. And David's like, no, we're all good. Stand down.
He's already there. He's got the gun. He's got the drop on her from behind.
Okay.
And so she's kind of like in between them. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
But David's like, no. Calm down. Just give her the medicine and let her go. Like, it's a fair trade, fair and square, blah, blah, blah. So Ellie gets the medicine, and then she runs back to this abandoned house where she's housing Joel. They follow her. Ellie doesn't know. And she gives this penicillin to Joel. And then it's nightfall, so she goes to sleep. So the next morning, she hears these bandits, hunters outside, and she decides, well, I can't let them ambush us with Joel here, so I'm going to get on this horse and run away and draw them off. And so she goes kind of off, and they are, like, following her. Well, later on, Joel wakes up, and he's like, where's Ellie? And he goes looking for her. So flashback, Ellie's been captured, and she wakes up in a cage. So kind of you were in this split sequence where we're seeing kind of Ellie's story, we're seeing kind of Joel's story. Joel's looking for Ellie. At some point, Ellie and David are talking. It becomes somehow clear that David is this leader of this kind of cannibal camp when they eat people there. He's like chopping up a body while he's talking to her in her cage. Eventually, somehow she gets out of the cage, and David attacks her. And at the same time, Joel's kind of in search of her, and I think you're controlling these like kind of back and forth. So Joel's in search of her, he's infiltrating this camp. Meanwhile, David attacks Ellie, and Ellie ends up somehow grabbing a machete, hitting him in the arm. That kind of throws him off. She's able to kind of overpower him, get on top of him, hit him in the face with this machete, and she's just like hitting him over and over and over and over until Joel gets to her kind of at that same point and pulls her off, and it's like, it's over. And then we're kind of like done with that intense,
that was very
crazy.
high level.
Yeah, no, I know it was very high level. I'm trying not to make this like a 4.5 hour long spoiler cast, so go ahead and interject any of the points that you did like there.
Okay. No, it's good. Well, it's a good, we got to the end, and now we can double back and talk about the specific parts. Do you remember much of Winter?
I do, because I remember this is the point at which I thought that the game picked up, and I wasn't aware of the segments of the chapters. I just remember Winter, and I remember in my head like, oh man, this is where it started going crazy. And I remember there's a part at which Joel's looking for Ellie, where he walks through like their meat locker, and there are some human bodies hung upside down.
Yeah, there's a lot of bodies.
And I remember that was like one of the only times in my entire video gaming career where I was like, oh my God, I just need to keep moving. I can't look at this.
Yeah.
And it's weird because that does not happen to me. But I just remember being just so like sickened by it that I couldn't even stand there. I just had to keep moving.
there's a note you can find as Joel, I think, that details the quote unquote haul that they get, and they're clearly referring to the human bodies they're like in, and they're recording it by pounds, and it's in the thousands. Like
jeez,
like at one point, and at some point it starts to dip, and there's notes to each haul, and there's a desperation as it gets lower and lower, like what they're gonna do. So it's pretty messed up.
Yeah, like I said, that was one of the only times in my entire gaming career where I'm like, I can't do this, man. Like that's disgusting. And it kind of makes me wonder. I mean, I guess they were after Ellie the whole time. I can't imagine they were that enticed by one deer, because I assume they have become fairly accustomed to the taste of human. So one deer.
So the deer's nice. They end up cooking it and feeding it to her anyway. So I was listening to another spoiler cast, and I did not pick up on this. They didn't want to necessarily eat her, according to everybody else, but they were going to make her some sort of sex slave, or she was going to be some sort of child bride for David as the pseudo leader of this cult thing. Like, did you pick up on that? Is that ever something that you got on your playthrough?
I got some
because why keep her alive? Why try to get her? Like, what's with the game when you're just gonna kill her in here?
Right. Well, so here's what I thought with my original playthrough. The reason they drew it out, and this is my mentality in my original playthrough, the reason they drug it out is because she was partly responsible for the deaths of a lot of their men. So why not kind of torture her, right? And then I remember, at the end there were some, I remember this even in 2014, having, these weird rapey vibes as he was trying to get to her and attack her and pin her down. I remember that, right?
Yeah.
But then Joel coming in right after she got that machete. So I don't remember any sort of child bride stuff, but I definitely remember it being weird.
Yeah, David clearly has plans for her that aren't eat her in the beginning. There's a point where he turns sour towards her. He's trying his best, in his psychopathic way to, be nice to her. But she just won't have it. And so he's like, all right, I'm done with you. And that's how she gets out of the cage. He's going to kill her. And then she's like, I'm infected. And he's like, what? And then she takes the confusion. She kills the one guy. Then she and that's how she escapes. I think it was dumb to introduce a villain at this stage of the game.
Yeah, you didn't like this chapter at all.
Not at all. I really love getting to play as Ellie, but then getting to play as Joel as he comes back out of his, his infectious coma thing. And I love give me back my daughter, rage mode, as he's got he has this single purpose. Nothing's gonna stop him, even though he's got this huge gut wound. He captures those two guys, he tortures them, he kills them both. There's this cruel efficiency, not even cruel, because it's not cruel per se. He's not dragging it out. He's just so good at what he does. And he's not even a quote unquote professional, this isn't something he was ever. Maybe he was in the army, the military before all this happened. I don't know.
Sure,
but
we don't know that. Yeah, it's been 20 years. He was a smuggler for 20 years. So
right, and he obviously picked up skills, and they really do that throughout the game. But no, I love his trudge through the snow as he comes upon the burning town. Taking care of everybody. Again, doing most of the heavy lifting and the killing, whereas Ellie's just trying to do her very best to not get caught or get out of this predicament that she's in. But I think it was a really wasted opportunity to go ahead and shine, because maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more, but you've asked before, and so have lots of other people, are specifically Joel, but are Joel and Ellie the bad guys? Are they bad people?
I don't want to get into it yet. I really don't.
All right, well then we'll come back to Winter and why they answer that in a little bit. I
think we should. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
I think we should wait for the rest of it. Yeah. I think you have to evaluate something like that as the total package, like all of the totality of it.
Sure.
And we can evaluate like the evolution of that. Okay. Are we ready to move on to the next portion?
Yep.
Okay. So after that scene, we kind of flash forward a few months and we are in spring of 2034. And we have found out 2 chapters ago that the Fireflies have moved on to Salt Lake City. So Joel and Ellie are entering Salt Lake City. And we're going through a bus station and Ellie spots something. And you're kind of talking about what happened and blah, blah, blah. But Ellie spots something and she runs ahead. And
she's being really melodramatic, right? Not melodramatic. She's being very standoffish. She's not talking. Yeah. She won't blah, blah, blah.
Sure. She's very much in her own head, right? Oh. And so she spots something and she runs ahead and she's like, I can't remember exactly what she says, but she says something that you need to see and kind of goes quiet. And so you think she's being attacked and you run ahead to save her. And as you climb up, and a lot of people say this of like, you boost her up and you've done this a million times and then she's supposed to pull you up, but she doesn't pull you up. And that's like the break of like, oh geez, this mechanic isn't working and something's different and something's off and something's wrong and I need to go save Ellie. And you kind of run ahead and then you're open to this really, really tranquil scene of like giraffes in this city. Talk me through this, because the more that I hear about this giraffe scene, the less I'm impacted by it.
Agreed. It's not
to the point where I'm like, I don't know that this was as like amazing as everybody's making it out to be.
I don't know. I was not impressed by this entire little section, this segue from the previous, chapter to what will be the final chapter of the game.
But you know what's crazy is, even though I literally knew nothing going into this game other than people liked it, and I picked it up not on the PS3, but really early into when it was remastered. Like probably within a few weeks of it being released as a remaster, I still knew about this giraffe scene. I still knew about it. And
I knew it existed as well. I didn't have any context other than the fact that giraffes are in the game. And so I was like, okay, well, whatever. But
right. Exactly. Same here. I was like, oh, there's a impactful artistic giraffe scene. That's all I knew. And I think that tainted my perception of it. I don't think I can separate.
I can't see how knowing that there's a giraffe scene can impact negatively what the meaning behind the scene is, though. Like, if you didn't feel it and I didn't feel it, I think it just missed for us. Like, I think it is people just putting it up on a pedestal. I think it's people, and I can't know what it was like to watch it before knowing anything about this game, period. Like, because even knowing how good the game is technically impacts the way that you then view every quote unquote pivotal scene.
Right. Hey, is there like something? I heard it like a scratching noise. It was
the dog is walking around and she won't settle down.
Okay, yeah, but that's fine. That's never free to play.
Yeah. Whatever.
Okay. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, it shouldn't have impacted my ability to perceive it, and I just wasn't hit by it. I don't know.
There's nothing to be hit by. So here's what happens. Joel goes to boost Ellie, and you expect her to just come up because it does. The scene plays. Dolly, stop. The scene plays exactly like it always did. And she doesn't come. And you're like, Ellie, what's wrong? And then you boost her up, and then you expect her, like you said, and she doesn't. And that's cool, but let's pump the brakes on how important and amazing that is. Like,
agreed. It's
a flash of subverted expectation, and then like it's over. And like to hang a hat on that, like okay. And so then, yes, the giraffes show up. Oh, what's that? and then you see like 6 or 7 giraffes, and that's kind of cool. And you pet the giraffe, and it's like, and then the most important moment of the scene to me, because it's up to you when you move on. You the player as Joel. There's a door to the stairwell, and you can just sit there probably forever. I guess I don't think at any point the game forces you to move on. Obviously, so like you can go ahead and soak that in as long as you want. You put your hand on the door, by pressing the button, and then Joel, like, that's when he asks, we don't have to do this. We can we can just go back to Tommy's place and just forget all of this. And I guess the giraffes, him seeing her, I don't know. I don't even understand it. I don't understand what's supposed to have triggered in Joel this final, like, he's been tipped over the edge of fatherhood, or father-like figure. Especially
not several months removed from this Cannibal David incident. Like, if anything, it should have been right after that.
Exactly. Like, they play it because they know that's what happened to us just a moment ago. But it's not what had just happened to everybody else.
Right.
And so...
And that's just the thing, is just like... I have listened to so many people talk about it and how they, like, teared up at this point. I'm just like, I don't remember it being that emotionally impactful. It was a cool little point of the story, but I don't think it's, like, the pinnacle of what this game is, and yet everybody pretends like it. Well, not pretends, but everybody frames it like that is it.
And, yeah, it's hard to say where genuine emotion meets... perceived, means an expectation. It's like, okay, I'm supposed to feel this way. Everybody else does. So I guess that's what I'm feeling. Like, how do you know that you're not being influenced? And I'm not trying to tell people that their feeling is wrong or that they are being somehow...
We're anti-influencer.
Right,
you weren't
exactly.
feeling it for real. If you credited this section, then it wasn't real.
They're not being bamboozled. But
you're being bamboozled.
Jason.
Sorry.
Stop.
I can't help it.
You do you. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I mean, it was a cool moment, but I don't think it was like, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever happened in the video game.
Yep.
Okay, so enough about giraffes. That's the only thing anyone ever knows about this game, is the giraffes. That's how we feel about the giraffes. So they move on, and like Karch said, there is a moment where Joel's like, we don't have to do this. And Ellie's like, it can't all be for nothing. Everything that we've done, everything that we've gone through, like, let's just keep going. Like, I want to help. This has to be meaningful. And so they enter this underground tunnel, and they have to navigate through some water, at which point something happens. The bus collapses. It drags Ellie under the water and knocks her unconscious. Joel has to save her. And he does, and he pulls her up onto, like, the side of this kind of subway station looking area, and he begins to perform CPR. And at that point, some sort of Firefly soldier comes out of nowhere. I guess we're really close to the Firefly base here in Salt Lake
because
City.
You can see they show several times, like, see, it's just right there. It's just right there. The hospital,
right.
Or what? Not the hospital. It was it a hospital?
I don't know. I don't remember this part.
Yeah, me neither.
So, anyway, a Firefly soldier appears, and he tells Joel to stand down. I don't know why. Joel's just trying to perform CPR, but the soldier's like,
because everybody in this world's an a-hole, and he has every right to think that Joel's some sort of bamboozler,
sure,
telling him how to feel about giraffes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's what Joel does. But Joel continues to perform CPR, and the soldier, like, knocks him unconscious, and the screen goes black, and that's kind of where we end this section here, this little chapter.
More impactful than the previous scene to me, when he's refusing to stop, like, the desperation, because, she's dying.
It's weird because that soldier didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
He didn't know that he only needed that little girl's brain. Like, I don't understand why he was so anti-CPR.
He didn't know who that was to begin. I very much doubt he knew that this is Ellie. This is the package, the savior of humanity, etc. He just saw two people that were not, regulated to go where they were, and he needed to take care of them.
knock him out. There's a dead girl and a guy doing CPR, and I don't agree with it. Bam!
And then they saved her anyway. Like what? How did that play out? Because it was just the two of them, right?
Right.
And so, like, were there more? Did one of them then immediately start performing CPR on them and save her? Like,
no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is where the story starts to get a little whatever. So, anything else to say about that section?
Does he I can't remember. Is Joel like, come on, baby girl? Does he say baby girl?
I don't remember, dude.
I think he does, which is, of course, very important because that's what he's like chanting to Sarah when she's bleeding out from the bullet in her stomach.
I gotcha. Yeah.
It mirrors that. And so for him to be so affectionate with her, like the way he speaks, it's nice.
Right. He's obviously like imprinted,
right,
so to speak.
Callbacks.
So then we're in the next scene here, and Joel wakes up. He's in a hospital bed, and Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies, that you'll recall from chapter 2 or 3.
I had forgotten that I knew who this chick was. I was like, oh,
really?
I had a vague inkling. I'm like, I must have met her at the beginning. She must have. And I think I eventually was like, oh yeah, she's the one who gave me Ellie. Like, Tess didn't give me Ellie. So, but like when she first showed up, I didn't have it's Marlene because I had forgotten about her.
Well, it had been several months.
Right.
I played this all within the span of a week and a half. That's if I'm going to beat a game, it's happening in a week and a half. And if it doesn't, then I'm not going to beat that game.
You suck.
I know.
You're never going to beat The Last of Us. You're never going to beat The Last of Us 2 without Greg or someone else like breathing down your neck.
I know. I know. It's the worst. I'm so bad about it. Like,
you're legitimately concerned.
I am. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to try my best. So Joel wakes up in the hospital bed. Marlene's in the room. And Joel asks to see Ellie. Marlene's like, that's not possible. And she kind of explains that the mutation of the cordyceps in Ellie's brain are needed to reverse engineer a vaccine. At which point, we kind of come to understand that this would mean Ellie would not survive the procedure. And Joel's not digging this plan. And Marlene leaves Joel with a guard, who's apparently his name's Ethan, but I don't think it matters because this guard is not alive long. Marlene basically tells Ethan to lead Joel out of the base here, and if he tries anything funny, just kill him. Of course, on the way out, Joel sees Ellie's backpack, and that leads him into this frenzy where he just starts killing and torturing everyone, trying to figure out where Ellie is. Well, so he finds out Ellie's in this surgery room. He knows where the surgery room is. On his way there, he finds some recordings that reveal that... I'm trying to remember what the recordings reveal. Do you remember what the recordings reveal?
I remember one recording. I don't remember another one. They were both. The one I read or listened to was Marlene talking about what she was going to have to do.
Right.
Because she's like, she's on this like moral high ground that this is okay because it's for humanity. And she's talking about, because she knew Ellie's mom personally, even though Ellie never met her mom, I think is how it, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Ellie knows her mom. It's like, oh yeah, I promised to take care of her, and she does, except, until she can't because she needs to kill her. So
that's right. It's basically Marlene's moral struggle. Right. So Joel finds that on his way to the surgery room. He breaks into the surgery room. He kills the doctors. He gets Ellie, who's still unconscious. He makes his way to the elevator. At this point, he is confronted by Marlene, and she basically tries to convince him, like, okay, leave Ellie here, and we'll let bygones be bygones. We'll let you go. Just leave Ellie and just walk away, and we're gonna use her to find the cure. And essentially, Joel rejects that offer, and he shoots Marlene. And basically, his logic is, "You're just gonna come after her again, so I gotta get rid of you." And then so he gets out to a car, and as they're driving away, Ellie wakes up and she asks what's happened at the hospital. And Joel lies and says that there are dozens of immune like Ellie and that the Fireflies were unable to develop a vaccine. And so they're not even looking for one anymore and they could just kind of go on. I'm hearing Dolly.
All right, so two things. Can I take care of that real quick?
Go ahead.
And
Yeah.
The other thing is my video stopped because apparently 3 hours is the limit.
No! Okay, so that was kind of the end of chapter 11, but the epilogue's not very long. So let me just cover that before we talk about the end of the game.
Cool.
So essentially, like, Joel and Ellie are driving back towards Tommy's settlement, and I assume some time has passed. And I mean, there's not very much in this epilogue, and I'm not going to go into super detail, but essentially as they're kind of like coming up on, I guess they're on a riverbank maybe? I can't really remember. But basically it boils down to a conversation where Ellie gives Joel one last chance to tell the truth about what happened at the hospital. And she basically says to him, like, what happened, and Joel swears that everything he told her was true.
I swear.
And then Ellie quietly responds like, okay. And then credits roll. And that's it. That's the game.
That's the game.
And we don't know. I mean, we assume she doesn't fully believe him, but what other choice does she have type of thing?
Right.
So let's talk about the end of the game, chapters 11 and 12.
So I think the last sequence is something the game is like the best example of something the game just should have done less of. And that is feel the need to be a video game in sections. Like I died, probably the most. So I died a lot in the beginning because I didn't quite understand the clickers, because there's a lot of clicker stuff early on. And then like there's almost no clicker stuff later. So once it's just humans and you have like all these places to hide and stuff, and they're not really good at just following where you are, it's a pretty easy game. And I didn't play it on a hard difficulty by any means either. But this part gave me trouble because all of a sudden they've got AK-47s or whatever, like, high powered rifles.
Right. Yeah.
And you get that weapon too if you pick it up off of them. But it was just like, it was like a pseudo boss fight, and it just wasn't necessary. They should have just it could have been gameplay, but it should have been more cinematic. Just kind of not a power fantasy, even just make it more fluid and flowing. Like, here's the end of the game.
I died a lot during this little sequence.
Right. And so, like, because there's nothing else to it. Like, I don't know, I guess there's a couple places where you might be able to find like some like story bits, but I don't think so. Like, I think you would have already found them before this final sequence, like the tape recorders and stuff.
Sure.
And then there's like, because like, again, there's no boss when you get into the OR, which is pretty brutal. Like, you get in there and it's like when I played Super Hot on the VR, and I'd never seen anything outside of like a 10-second clip of Super Hot before. But after I did the tutorial, like, the game kind of stalls, but you still have the gun in your hand. And I just instinctually knew what to do. And I put that gun to my head and I pulled the trigger, and it's like, aha, the game starts.
Of course. That's always your instinct.
And so when you get into that room and those doctors are like, or the doctors and the nurses are like, like, and nothing happens, you're like, oh, I know what I have to do.
Right.
And I guess
you have no choice. You have no choice.
All right, I guess I have, I think I heard on another Spoilercast that you don't have to kill the nurses or the assistants or whatever, but the doctor, like the person you see immediately when you come in, the game will not, like, he won't be able to pick Ellie up and leave the game, leave the hospital without killing the doctor. Which is like, because I think he reaches for a weapon. I think that's why, but I just did it like boom, like that. And so I don't even remember seeing if he did or not, which is, that's a really powerful moment. I think more than any other, way more than, Ellie didn't come when I went to boost her. Like, I thought that was, and I know it's like, it sounds cheaper to say, like, I think people feel artsier because it's not as violent, but it was so instinctual. It was so fluid. Like, well done, well done, Naughty Dog. So,
sure. Yeah.
And, another interesting point, Ellie is unconscious from the previous, cut to black all the way until she wakes up in the car. Like, it's really interesting and very important that obviously she's unconscious and completely unaware. She never once sees the inside of that hospital. She never sees Marlene again. I love that scene, by the way, where he's like, he'll just come after her. Boom.
Yeah.
Because he's not wrong. Because apparently you can just make a vaccine with one sample. Like, that's going to work. Okay.
Well, I guess if you're like totally,
well, society
has devolved to this point. Like, there's no FDA.
Right. But I mean, to say that it won't work on the first try, nothing does. Nothing ever works on the first try. And it's a bit jerky to make the character or make the player think that maybe Joel's a bad guy in this exact moment. I'm not going to talk about it in general, but in this exact moment to choose Ellie, because you are supposed to feel that. At least you're supposed to think about it. Except, like, if you take a step back once you're done playing, like, no, this was the right choice. This is the choice anybody would make.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about it, because one of the major questions that I think a lot of people ask themselves is Joel the villain? Is Joel the bad guy?
He's not the villain. We'll say that right up the front. He's obviously not the villain.
Is he a bad guy?
In the context of this world and game, no, he's not, because
I agree. I don't know why so many people had that moment of like, oh, am I the bad guy? Oh my gosh.
Because people don't watch good television and movies, and they don't read good books. And
Get over yourselves. Like, you have to put yourself, if you put Joel in the context of the real world, yeah, he's the bad guy. He kills 1 million people. He's smuggled stuff for 20 years. He puts Ellie over this quote unquote, like, a vaccine that will save humanity. But if you put it in the context of the world and Joel's experience, like, no, he's not the bad guy.
I mean, I'm not even going to say that. I mean, I agree with you for the most part, but I'm saying the game goes out of its way to make you know that Joel is a good guy. Like, in a world where everyone is a kind of a murdering hobo, like, they want you to know that Joel's still a good guy. He is not a bad guy. Everybody you meet is a ravenous psychopath. The cannibals are, beyond the pale in a world that's beyond the pale. And sure. I think that was a mistake, because Joel can still be the good guy. He can make relatively moralistic decisions, but it would have been nice to explore, like when David, because before you realize that David's a total crazy person, when he's at the campfire and he's like, yeah, this couple of people have been murdering all my friends and family. That's kind of messed up, don't you think, Ellie? It's like, let them come to grips a bit with the things because they do, but not really. Not in a way the player has to experience. No one has to experience, as they play this game, coming to grips with the decisions to kill anybody, because everybody is like a rabid monster, except Joel and Ellie. They're always defending themselves.
Right.
You never see them as the aggressor, ever. Because even before you realize they're cannibal crazy people, like, okay, well, all right, yeah, we did kill all your friends, but what were they doing roaming that hospital trying their very best to kill us? Because it didn't take me more than half a second to ask myself that question. And so even if nothing else happened with them, they started it. We didn't do anything, and they were trying to kill us. And that's always when you're in the vacuum like that, Joel and Ellie are always in the right every single time. And so sure. Even the gray stuff aside, it's so obvious that they're supposed to be the good guys. And that's, for better or for worse, that is obviously the case. When people try to, is Joel the bad? No, he's not. And you're dumb to think so. You're trying to be some sort of 13-year-old teen, which,
you're
let's
an
face
idiot.
It, there's a lot of people who, every year passes, gamers get older and older to a degree. But, 7 years ago, this was still, there were a lot of younger people playing this game. Yeah. This might have been one of their first more mature storylines, not just, rated R kind of stuff, but that makes you think and stuff. So
right.
It did. And I
never had that moment. When I played this, I was 25, probably. I don't know how many. It's okay, 6. I'm 31. What's 31 minus 6, Karch? 25.
34.
No, it's not.
24.
Jesus. Okay. I was yeah. So anyway, my point is that I was kind of like, I'm not going to say I was older, but I was like older for a gamer, right? So I never had that moment of, am I the bad guy? It never crossed my mind because I just felt like I was making the right decision because it just felt like the right thing to do. Like if you have to, I don't know, if you have to kill somebody to find I don't know, man. It just never crossed my mind that I was the bad guy.
And so like, even, I don't know, I'm just riffing here off the top of my head. Like, I don't know if they've ever said like, oh yeah, if he had let her do that, they would have found a vaccine and humanity would have been saved. Like if that's the quote unquote word of God from Naughty Dog, I reject that. Like
and I think it is. I
reject that. I don't believe that's too simplistic. And it makes,
I agree.
Again,
I totally agree. And then it never makes that clear. It never makes it clear that it's a 100% guarantee. It
because
never
that's
does.
not possible. And a plague, maybe not this exact plague, but a plague that destroys humanity and maybe even warps the people that survive to like a monstrous state is a possibility. Like plagues are a thing.
We're there, man.
Right. Like, but you know what's not a thing? Vaccines that work after one single experiment.
Right.
And so like I reject that. And if that is the case, then Joel's the bad guy. And like there is no like
well,
like
and that's the thing though, even if it's 100% guarantee that it would have worked, Joel doesn't know that. So I still contend that he's not the bad guy because he doesn't know that.
Right. I mean, I believe in the sanctity of life, obviously, and could never give up what is essentially my daughter. You'd have to kill me, and that's fine. You want to, go ahead, but I'm not going to let you do it. You know, and that's all it comes down to. And they were willing to do that. They were willing to kill Joel. It was just it was the social contract at work.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I don't think Joel's the bad guy, but only because the game insists that he's not. I still don't think he's a bad guy in a world full of bad people.
No, exactly.
He's
an interesting character. He's not a bad guy.
The game doesn't want you to think he's the bad guy either. And I think that maybe that might have been their intention and they failed. And I think they're rectifying that in the second one, if the very little I've seen of it is any indication. Because Ellie is going to become the hunters. You know, she is going to become the boogeyman. And
that's interesting. That's kind of like the, what's that movie with Will Smith? Help me out. I Am Legend.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, if you read the book,
no, I know Mega Man and the original and all that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm told, and for anybody who doesn't know, I'm told that kind of the premise of I Am Legend, if you've ever seen the movie, is that it's this one last living man on Earth who is trying to save humanity, and he's doing so by killing these, like, infected. And then later on in the plot, he finds out that he's the bad guy because he's the one that, like, kills them.
Yeah, they're intelligent. They have their own society. For some reason, he's never been able to communicate with them, probably because he's too busy killing them. They end up killing him, at least in one version of the story, because there was the book, there was another movie, and then there was finally the Will Smith movie, which was a fine movie, but I don't want to get too sidetracked into that.
I liked that movie.
It's a good movie.
I went home so depressed about that movie.
And I like the original ending, like the one that they showed in theaters. A lot of people who know about the alternate ending.
What's the alternate ending?
I'm trying to remember, but I can't.
I think he died.
He does die in both, but
in the theatrical ending, he whatever. We're talking about The Last of Us. Let's not distract. I don't think Joel is a bad guy. I don't think he's a bad guy. I certainly don't think he's a villain. I don't even think he's a bad guy. I think given the information that he has, he makes the choice that makes the most sense period.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that given the same choice, I don't think I would have done anything differently.
90% of people wouldn't have even taken the job. 9% of those other people would have like failed. The other 9%, like it just keeps getting down, would have been cowards and like just a bit like it. If you get to Joel's position, everybody makes the same decision he does. Nobody sits there and says, "Oh, okay, well, you can have her." I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do, because Marlene supposedly loved her like a daughter. She loved her like a daughter because she loved her mother, and I get a strong, lesbian vibe between them. And not to just say that two women who have affection for each other can't, be platonic, but that is just what I get when I read all the material that's left behind about regarding Marlene, and I can't remember Ellie's mom's name. But that's the feeling I get, that even if it's one-sided, that there was at least some kind of potential romantic feeling, even if it was never acted on. And the very strong bond to then take over the rearing of a child, especially one that, that isn't yours. Noble sacrifice indeed, but still a very difficult decision to make.
Sure.
So, yeah. Do you think I've heard in the past that some people wish that you're able to make the choice for Joel? Do you think that would have been a better way to do the game, or do you like it better that they just told their own story?
That's not what Naughty Dog wanted. They wanted to give you the narrative.
No. I'm saying not Naughty Dog. Other people who've played the game would have liked to have chosen.
Well, I for this particular game, I don't think that's the right choice.
It would be really weird to have no other such thing, like
right?
No mechanic, at the very least.
That only works if there wasn't going to be a sequel.
Speaking of sequel, do you think there was always a sequel planned? And do you think this game needs a sequel? I know you're excited to play it, but do you think this game needed a sequel?
I don't think it needed a sequel, but I'm looking forward to it.
Like, I'm just super curious to how this plays out in a way that, and it's not raw, it's not a problem if this is the case, but how does this play out in a way that makes, how does the original game influence this, aside from the fact that these are characters from that game and we know those characters? Like, could I
haven't
play
been
this?
paying attention enough to speak intelligently.
No, and we won't know until we play it.
Right.
So
I'm excited. I'm super excited to dive into it.
What is it? 7 more days or 6 more days?
What is it? The 19th or the 18th? I think it's the 19th. I think it's the 19th. So
yeah, it's a Friday.
We're talking less than a week, man. I'm gonna stay up till midnight on the 18th and do it, man.
I'll wait. I'll play on Friday night, I guess.
And I think what I'll probably do is try to record that night, and then I'm gonna probably not do much commentary at all, and then just kind of put up my gameplay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just watch yours. Except I'm not going to do that, because if I watch yours and you don't finish it, then I got to play through the whole game up to that point to see and then finish it myself. I'm
going to try so hard to finish it because there's really nothing in between The Last of Us and Cyberpunk that I'm like looking forward to playing.
Last of Us 2 length. Ooh, it's long.
How long?
CNET was the first hit. Puts it at about 30 hours.
No, I can do 30. I can't do anything over it.
But let's see if you will.
You know what? I can do it, man. I can do it.
That's easily their longest game by a good chunk, because Uncharted 4 is like, I don't know, 15?
No, so it's 20 for sure.
Really? Okay, still, that's 30% more. 50%
it might be
more.
Long. Hold on. It's how long to beat Uncharted 4? Oh, it says 15.
Yeah, I was right.
How long to beat The Last of Us 2? 25. So, yeah. We'll see. All right. Are we ready to call Greg?
Are we done talking?
Well, are you done talking?
Let me take a look at my notes. I think that was a pretty darn good spoiler cast, if I do say so myself.
Dude. I think that was legit, man. I think it was.
Do you like Ellie as a character?
Do I like her as a character based on The Last of Us Part 2? I don't dislike her as a character. I mean, sorry, Part 1. I don't dislike her as a character. I mean, I really have nothing negative to say about her. Do I dislike her? Do you dislike her as a character?
Yeah, I don't like her.
Why?
I don't know. I feel like she's a prop. I know Joel's the main character. I get that. But I feel like, and maybe this is because I knew, and maybe she's supposed to feel like a prop. She's supposed to be this almost like she's the savior of humanity. That's her first and primary, like, not personality trait, but her, like how you are eventually identify her as, and that's how the Fireflies see her. And, if things had gone differently, she just would have been, cells to create a vaccine, essentially. But, like, I don't know, this character just comes off as, and, like, she comes off as chaotic. And she's a teenager, and she's like, she doesn't know what's going on, and blah blah blah. But, like,
what character isn't a prop, man? I mean, like,
Joel's not a prop, man. Joel's not a prop. Bill's not a prop.
Bill's is a prop.
Bill's not a prop.
He is.
But I also don't like where I see Ellie get, like, she just seems so wild, like, uncontrollable in a way that I just don't want to play that character, I guess. And it's not their fault that that's how the story's going,
Yeah.
Not that
Well, that'll be interesting to see how they reconcile that for the sequel, because, I mean, obviously you don't play her that much in the original game, but she's kind of the protagonist in the sequel, so we'll see.
True. Yeah. It is a good game. I don't get it, though. Like, I don't get the severe love for it. I don't think I'm going to feel the severe love for the second one either. I will admit, this is not a game that I flocked to necessarily on my own. I played this specifically because of the sequel and its pedigree and your stupid prattling about how great it is.
Well, it's good. It's good. I think to the casual game, I shouldn't say casual gamer, but to the person that this isn't, like, for, I think at the very least you could say that, I mean, like you said, it's a good game, and I think you can kind of see from an outsider looking in why people appreciate it, but I totally understand the criticism of it. So, I mean, I get it. To me, it's. I think I put it on a pedestal a little bit, but if I'm trying to be totally objective, it's probably in line with the Uncharted games. If you look at it as a package, if you look at it as the mechanics and the gameplay and all of it, just like all of it. I mean, the story is fantastic, right? I think maybe stories come down to personal preference, but I prefer this story to Uncharted. But if you're looking at it as a video game, I think it's probably just on par with Uncharted. You know what I mean?
Sounds like a really... Yeah, that was a really good way to put it.
So, yeah. All right. Let's wrap this up, man. You ready to call Greg?
Why do we call this guy?
I'll call him, unless you want to, because my camera died, so I no longer have the...
I'm not calling him.
You're going to call him?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I'll call him. He's probably not going to answer, even though he literally just texted me. That's going to be funny. He's just not going to answer. I can't believe that. He texted me like 10 minutes ago.
Hi, you've reached Greg
is the Last of Us.
Oh, okay, that's fine. He is putting his son to sleep right now.
Oh, okay.
I'll give him. He texted me. He texted me. I'll give him that one.
A fitting end to an episode drenched in fatherhood.
Right. Oh, man. It is 2 o'clock in the morning where he is. It's also 2 o'clock in the morning where you are. So thanks for like going on this ride with me. I'm excited that we moved this recording date to Thursday / flexibility to bump to Friday. Because here's the thing, like, even if we record Friday, like, we could still get this thing out Monday, and we get all the news from the week. We get and it's a lot more flexibility. So I dig it.
Agreed. I dig it too.
Cool. All right, man. Anything else? Any parting words? We're going like on 3.5 hours here. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I'll say this. I had a great time doing Spoilercast. It was really fun to have talked about a game that we both finished.
For sure.
Even if we were doing so 7 years apart.
Whatever.
Right, exactly, whatever. But like, I can literally probably count on like one hand that's happened in the last decade. Like games we've both completed to credits. Because I can't even think of another one right now. I'm sure I'll find one soon. But
oh, sure.
Zelda. Nope. You didn't finish that either.
I did finish Breath of the Wild. I did.
Oh, okay, cool.
2 credits.
All right, next.
Did I have to get my younger brother Jude to help me with it? Yes. But I watched him do it. I was sitting right there. It was only the last portion of the game. I completed it at the credits.
All right, well, there you go.
There you go. Breath of the Wild. Boom. All right, man. Well, I have no video, but it's okay. Everybody have a great, fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.